age, air combat is now driven by the jet engine.
These guys went into a very unknown environment. They went into a very tough war. This wasn't World War II. They took airplanes that were flying twice the speed of any fighter combat before, and they showed us how it was done.
James Jabara flies element lead in a flight of 6. The 27-year-old captain is one of the best. A Mustang pilot during World War II, he's become a master of jet versus jet combat. With 4 MiG-15 kills to his credit, he's one away from becoming the first American ace of the jet age.
Jabara is so close. I mean, he's got 4 MiG kills. The Air Force desperately wants an ace, and he's the guy that can do it.
After only minutes in enemy territory, he'll get his chance. 50 gleaming MiG-15s scream across the Yalu River to take on the Americans. Jabara punches his tanks to streamline his fighter for combat, but something goes wrong.
He loses only one of his tanks, gets a huge asymmetric rocking motion on the aircraft, probably bangs his head off the canopy, has a difficult time controlling the airplane.
The pins securing the tanks to the wing have frozen, a common problem in the frigid skies of North Korea. Standing orders dictate that he must return to base.
He puts both hands on the stick, steadies it, and gets the aircraft back under control, and then in a very short amount of time has to make that critical combat decision. Can I still fight with this airplane? Now, his judgment is weighed with his aggressiveness, and his aggressiveness wins out.
Jabara and the rest of the Americans pull a right break into the oncoming enemy. Approaching head-on, the fighters close at over 1,600 feet per second. At this speed, it's next to impossible to get an accurate shot. The MiGs thunder past. Jabara jerks the stick hard left to pursue. The Hung wing tank turns his F-86 into a bucking Bronco.
He's probably pulling 30, 40, 50 pounds of stick force right there and trying to control his jet as he's pulling lead out in front.
Jabara's wingman, Salvatore Kemp, calls out 3 more MiGs, diving fast from behind. The MiGs are here. They've gained a 100-mile-per-hour speed advantage in the dive. Jabara and Kemp are here, with only a split second to counter them. The MiGs hurtle in. Jabara pulls up and to the right. He's using the MiGs' diving speed against them, forcing an overshoot.
Jabara's brake turn up to the right forces 2 MiGs to go right by and continue to go. One MiG, for one reason or another, decides to peel off to the left, exposing his belly to Jabara.
Jabara pounces. He snaps his plane to the left and locks onto tail end Charlie.
Not only is that the sign of a good fighter pilot, but it's a sign of a good fighter pilot in the new jet age. Things happen extremely fast, and those that are able to react almost before it happens are able to take advantage.
The bandit stays in a diving left turn. Jabara pulls the stick in tight to stay in trail. At this altitude, the F-86 and MiG-15 are evenly matched in a turning fight. But Jabara's got something his foe lacks: a G-suit. It's a World War II invention that came into its own as an essential tool of dogfighting in the jet age. The G-suit constricts around Jabara's legs and abdomen, keeping blood from pooling in his extremities. Jabara is able to pull tighter than the MiG pilot without blacking out. He closes the gap. His coveted 5th kill is now in perfect position, dead center in his gun sight. Jabara opens fire. .50 caliber rounds impact the MiG. The pilot ejects. Seconds later, the empty fuselage explodes.
This is what he's been working for. This is why he's been in Korea. So he has got to be elated at this point.
It's a confirmed kill. America has its first jet ace. James Jabara honed his skills in the prop-driven fighters of World War II. After the war, he became one of the first American pilots to fly the next generation of combat aircraft, the jet fighter. In a turbojet engine, air enters an intake and is compressed into a combustion chamber where fuel is added and ignited. The rapidly expanding gas forces its way through a turbine and out the exhaust port, creating a massive amount of forward thrust. The jet engine was pioneered by British and German engineers during World War II. In the waning months of the war, the Germans were the first to send a jet fighter into combat, the Me-262. Twin turbojet engines gave it a 100-mile-per-hour speed advantage over prop fighters. The Me-262 combined jet technology with an innovative swept-wing design. The swept wing created less drag than a conventional straight wing, allowing for higher top speeds. During the war years, both the Russians and Americans developed their own first-generation jet fighters, the MiG-9 and the P-59 era Comet. But these underpowered straight-wing designs never saw combat. In 1947, when German technology became available, both the Americans and the Russians adapted the swept wing. The result was the F-86 Sabre and the MiG-15. The F-86 had exceptional visibility and a strong airframe designed for air-to-air combat. The MiG was lighter, with a faster rate of climb and a higher service ceiling. In the skies above North Korea, these fighters would square off in the first large-scale jet versus jet dogfights in history. May 20th, 1951. After 6 months of high-speed air combat, James Jabara has just become America's first jet ace. But a massive air battle is still raging above him.
There was never an inclination in his mind to break off and go home just because he made ace. His job in Korea was to kill MiGs.
Jabara coaxes his Sabre to 20,000 feet. His wingman is nowhere in sight. With a hung tank and nobody watching his six, he has 2 strikes against him.
There's a swirl of activity. There are MiGs, there are Sabres in the air. He looks forward and he sees 6 MiGs in the air above him. He immediately goes in the attack mode, just as you would expect him to, and he immediately goes for the trail aircraft, which is the smart thing to do, to pick them off one by one from behind.
Jabara's gun ports are blazing. The MiG formation scatters, but number 6 climbs straight ahead.
Jim was trying to close the gap, but of course the F-86 was slower than the MiG in the climb to begin with. With the hung tank, it was very slow, and this MiG could have easily gotten away.
But the MiG pilot makes a critical mistake and suddenly dives to the left. The maneuver plays right into the Sabre's strength. It's faster in a dive. Jabara draws a bead and pulls the trigger, shredding his enemy's engine. The powerless jet tumbles, his 6th kill. Suddenly, tracer fire envelops Jabara's canopy. The tables have turned. MiGs are on his 6 o'clock, closing in to avenge their fallen comrade.
Well, now Jabara has committed a couple of cardinal sins. Don't engage if you can't drop your tank. Don't engage if you don't have a wingman. Don't fixate on the target. And that's exactly what he's done in this case.
James Jabara realizes that his quest to become a jet ace could cost him his life. May 20th, 1951. Captain James Jabara is running for his life from 2 MiG-15s. He pulls hard to the left, attempting to throw his attackers off. Glowing 37 and 23 millimeter tracers smoke past the right side of his F-86. Jabara pushes his J-47 jet engine to full power. 5,200 pounds of thrust. But the hung wing tank limits his speed to 500 miles per hour. 100 miles per hour less than the MiGs. What's worse, it handicaps his turning ability.
With that tank and the slower speed, Jim was a sitting duck.
He pulls hard, hits his speed brakes, pulls his speed brakes in, reverses, turns hard the other way, rolls out, accelerates, turns, doing this just to momentarily break up the gun firing solution from the MiGs.
The enemy pilots are padlocked on his tail.
He is meat on the table, and unless something happens, Jabara's 6th kill will be his last kill.
Luckily for Jabara, something does happen. American pilots Mo Pitts and Rudy Howell happen upon the scene. The Sabres are here. The MiGs are here, behind Jabara. The Americans will dive quickly to close the gap and knock the MiGs off Jabara's tail. At jet speeds, they'll have mere seconds to accomplish their goal.
Pitts and Hawley roll in behind the MiGs. One of the MiGs pulls off. But the flight leader MiG is not so eager to get out of there.
MiG leader lines up his shot, but Hawley is in position. His M3 machine guns roar to life. The MiG smokes, breaks for home. The Americans' slashing attack has worked. Pitts and Hawley form up with Jabara and escort him home. As Jabara taxis in, he finds a crowd waiting for him.
It was a great day. We had our first jet ace, and we had a big celebration on the ramp, carried him around.
Jabara is awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. After his 123rd mission, he is sent home to a hero's welcome. He returns to Korea in 1953 and adds an astonishing 9 more MiG kills to his tally, becoming one of only 2 triple aces during the war.
Jabara was the first jet ace that the U.S. Air Force had. And this was a major triumph and a major accomplishment. He would be the